Welcome everybody to another program of Immersion School. Today we are with Sphoorti. He's one of the engineering managers here in Best Buy. And he's going to explain to us today how is the job for an engineering manager, and if you are, for example, like a startup or an entrepreneur and you want to apply some of the ideas or how you can manage teams and people, she's going to give us a lot of details, no? So welcome, Sphoorti. Thank you so much. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and how you become an engineering manager. What are the responsibilities, for example, that you have?
Great, sounds good. So let me start. So I had a very long journey in my career. I came from India. I used to work in India. Then I worked in Paris and France, and then I came to US. Until I came to US, I have been an individual contributor as a Java J2 developer. Then later on, I moved into Intel, and that's where I moved into the management path. From there, I have moved from Intel to a startup company called Neha's. Then I came to Seattle to work for Amazon, and now I am here at Best Buy. So it has been quite a journey, and it has been a very organic growth for me to realize myself, and actually my engineering managers have helped me to grow in my career in many ways, and they have identified the strengths in me, and that's how I moved into the management.
So you were first an individual contributor, so people that they don't know, it's like an engineer, so you don't have to manage a team. Later you become a manager. How you do this transition to become a manager?
Yeah, definitely. So as an individual contributor, I have been taking the tasks and the user stories and all other things on a very granular level, given and defined by product managers and our engineering managers and scrum masters. And later on, I took up ownership of developing certain modules and systems of one individual architecture, and that's how the scope of the work increased. It was just not doing the programming part, but also designing the interactions between multiple services. And that's when I had a chance to groom an intern who was working under me, and then the intern had a very good feedback about what kind of mentorship I do. And that's when my manager identified that I have potential to actually lead people and motivate them to build systems. So that was the starting point.
So basically it was like an internal promotion, no? That your manager see a lot of good skills about managing people, and they say, wow, you should do this, no? So
Yes.
So as your responsibilities and the people that you had to talk and your stakeholders, what are your stakeholders? What is the people that normally you had to talk?
Yes, yeah. So as an engineering manager, everybody, by the word engineering means everybody will think that, okay, the manager is supposed to only manage the engineers, but it is not entirely true. There are different, ranges of stakeholders. One is on the business side, one is on the operational side, and another is on the development side. On the development side, as an engineering manager, you are very close to the development side, where you are interacting on a day-to-day basis with your own team, who are the software development engineers. And on the operational side is running the whole entire business, making sure keeping the lights on. So you would interact more onto the QA and the DevOps and release management team to make sure that the whole entire release and delivery process is in place. And on the business side is that's where we define why we are doing certain things for our development, why are we building certain feature. That is where we deal with product managers and other stakeholders from other business units, where you're building a solution for them, or directly talking to customer support or client services to understand what is the customer experience being with the product. So knowing this whole range of information, you will know what kind of a decision to be taken, given that we know how to build things, but we need to know what we need to build and why we are building that. That is one thing, is what we want to solve as an engineering manager.
So I have heard that managers have a lot of meetings, no?
Yes.
Why they have a lot of meetings? You have to, and what kind of meetings you have to have?
Yes, yeah. So meetings ranges from different scope. As I mentioned, the scope of engineering manager is very broad. You would require a breadth of knowledge rather than the depth of knowledge, because for the depth of knowledge you have hired very smart engineers who will help you with the depth of knowledge, and individual experts and subject matter expertise who will help you with the depth of knowledge. But at the breadth of knowledge, on a very looking at the very bird's eye view, you need to understand like what are we trying to build and how is it going to affect. It's like a butterfly effect. Like you make one change in one system, it's going to affect multiple places. And that's what you need to know as an engineering manager.
Like a dominoes, no? Like you put them repeats and everything can
destroy, it is like a chain reaction. So that's why you need to know how well connected each and every system is. So that's where the meetings come into picture. So
for example, you will be meeting with engineers, and maybe you have like one-on-ones or meetings with them, and for managing for example, the VPs or the directors, and what more people you have to meet, the product managers probably.
So every year every company goes through this annual planning on what to build the next year. That's where engineering managers would have meetings with stakeholders, like at the VP level or at the director level, and at the product management level as well, to understand like what is the next roadmap we want to lay out for the next year. That's where the budgeting comes into picture, like how big is a project, is that going to be a project or is that going to be a program which is going to run for years, and how much of budget allocation are we going to do, are we going to get more extra headcounts, or can we manage with our existing headcounts. That's one meeting which you have on an annual basis, and that goes like almost like 6 months to finalize that whole entire thing.
And what do you say? You would say, I want more money, or I want 10 more engineers, because as much we can is better, no?
Right.
Okay.
I mean that's a very good question actually. How would you say that? How many engineers would you require? That is based on like your sprint and agile ceremonies you would be having like every 2 weeks. Like here we have like a 2-week sprint, and we know so we know what's the capacity and the velocity of the team and how much they have been achieving.
For people that maybe don't know about agile and sprints, a sprint is basically like for 2 weeks you decide that you are going to develop like some kind of feature, and you have to build it in like these 2 weeks, no?
Right.
And the goal is normally 100% complete, no? that is the goal, no?
Yes.
And later I suppose that maybe you have milestones to develop the full product.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So based on that, we engineering managers will know like what's the capacity and the velocity of the team. And based on that, knowing the size of the program, what we are deciding for the annual planning, we will know like how many headcounts we would require and what's the current capacity of the team based on that.
Yeah, because for example, can you give any example? Because for example, I don't know, I can imagine if I have this existing product and I have to develop a new one, obviously with the workload that we have, is not possible. So so that will be an example.
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes there might be a case where we don't have enough budget for the headcounts, but we will know like in which year or which period we will complete this project, and how important is it with the current ongoing projects, and do we want to like stop that or continue something new. Those are the decisions we will be making there. That is one of the meetings. Coming like I'm actually going on a top-bottom approach. So when you decide what you want to build, then you like talk with individual program managers to understand which are the teams needs to be involved to get this into a fruition. Then you go a level down again and you talk with individual project managers of the individual teams to align with the program management, to understand like how they can set their milestones in a way at a very granular team level to align with the programs. And then comes like the engineers, where they would actually understand what's the problem statement they are trying to solve, and they come up with the system design or change in architecture or build everything from the scratch, or what are the minute changes they can do in order to achieve that.
When you say the program management, it's similar to a product manager or not?
No, it's
because
not.
Because many people probably don't know what is a program manager. A program manager is more like managing the execution of a project in some way. Program
management's major responsibility is to make sure that the program is executed in the way the customer wants, which is basically product managers are representing the customers within the company, the way product managers want, and also to make sure that any kind of blockers or dependencies are very well managed and are unblocked whenever it is necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to work with both program managers and product managers.
Yes.
Okay, because now there are many kind of product managers, like strategy product manager, growth product marketing managers, growth marketing managers. So there is a lot. So how you talk with engineers? I mean, I like to know how is the communication here, no, because one thing that is important in the US, I think that the individual contributor wants to have that you are not managing him, that you are that he has more control or he's proposing things. How you talk with your engineers when you have to ask to accomplish, for example, some feature or some task?
Right. This is a very common question which I actually get it.
Okay.
Historically, everybody imagines that engineering managers just tell the engineers what to do, and then they'll go ahead and do it. But it is a very creative world right now. We want to make sure that everybody is getting a chance to think creatively, and when we define what needs to be done, you are actually curbing the creativity of an engineer. Instead, we would like to pose the problem to the engineer and they can come up with the creative solutions rather than me coming up with a solution for it.
Can you provide, for example, an example? If you want to convince some engineer for doing the task?
Right, yeah. For example, say if I want to build an integration between two APIs, right? And typically what I would say is hey, let's change the JSON format, let's change certain parameters and everything, and so that the APIs can integrate very well. That's a very, very vague way of telling it. But there are so many other nitty-gritties involved in it. For example, if I leave it to an engineer, he might think it one level up and higher, thinking about what will be the availability of the services. Do I need to take care about the latency of the things? What is the incoming traffic about it? And what is the underlying database what I'm using? Do I need to redefine my data model to do that? Those kind of questions will automatically come to an engineer when I just say that, hey, we have two services and these services can talk to each other to furnish or hydrate certain kind of data, and they can think more in terms of what are the things to be solved, because when we hire engineers, we want to make sure that they are problem solvers. They are
you tell them what you want to accomplish in a high level, and you give them the creativity to solve that problem, creating an epic or different stories if it's needed, because maybe it's more complicated than you thought. Like you mentioned, it has to be reliable. We don't want to lose the data, or we want to have 100% available, or it has to be reliable, or we want to have a good experience for the customers, so it's fast, the service, these kind of things.
Those kind of things. So basically what that helps is it gets a sense of ownership and also commitment from the engineers, rather than me saying directly go ahead and do this, because there's no sense of ownership and commitment. It's more of dictatorial, and that is not the way of managing. We should be in a servant leadership style.
I think that this is something more new or creative way to do it, because I remember, for example, in Europe or in other countries, that what they do is you have a program manager or project manager that's separating a lot of tasks and give to the engineers, and they have to tell specifically what they have to build. But here, the technical program managers, they don't have to be technical, so you delegate, I think, more the responsibility also to the engineer.
I think it's being technical really helps, because in this current market we are actually digitizing everything, and much of the companies the experience what I have is only working in software development companies, and having a technical knowledge really helps, because understanding a language in which an engineer talks is what is more important, what are the changes they are making, and why we are considering latency or availability, which may not be so relevant for a program manager or a product manager. But as an engineers, we know that we want to build highly scalable and very easy to operate services, rather than building a new feature and then struggling really hard to operate it and maintain it, right? So I think having technical knowledge in terms of like for product managers and program managers is really helpful. They will have a much more in-depth understanding on like why engineers are building in this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question that I have for you is like, for example, when you have a pool of engineers and you want that they become motivated and all these things, sometimes they are going to ask you, for example, how I can get a raise, how I can get a promotion, how these things work, how you reward with engineers, or how it works in a company.
Sure, definitely. So going back to like one step, the one question which you asked me, like
Okay.
saying like what needs to be done, as compared to they coming up to me saying that what needs to be done is what it matters the most actually, and that's what actually decides if the candidate is worth an investment to a company.
Okay.
Right? Like if we are like CEOs of a company and if we are given a budget, we are investing in the candidate because we are assuming that the candidate will bring back the value to the company again, right? So that's what actually defines the raise and promotion for a candidate.
Okay.
So when we are interviewing the candidates, we interview say for 6 hours, 1 hour for every round.
It's crazy, like many hours.
Yes, and you are still not in a position to say so confidently if the candidate is gonna bring the value what we're expecting, right? So that's why we hire hire them at like certain level, and then we make sure that we have a career development plan for them based on their interests to make sure that they are going for a next higher level either by promotion or by hike, right? So every candidate, whenever they join the company, of course everybody is very progressive in nature and they want to grow up in the ladder. So they have to work very closely with the engineering managers, because how you can grow up into the ladder is like how you can bring the whole business up.
So you are their best friend.
Yes, yes.
They have to be friends with you.
Yes, I think it is. Well, yes, you have to be very good friends with the engineering managers. Yes.
So you can get your promotions and your raise.
Right. It's not just about like consider your managers as your real good friends, because they have very good best interests for you. When we hire a candidate, we don't hire just thinking that the candidate is hired right now, but we also think about like in the next 2-3 years what will be the plan for the candidate.
Okay.
We already think about that, and we build a career growth plan for them. And career growth plan is like something which the candidate and the manager should work together to understand what interests them. Like for example, for example, there are engineers whom I have met who are more oriented towards the DevOps, but they are not much into programming. And I have seen like engineers who are so much into programming but they are not into testing. And there are some engineers who are highly oriented towards the automation testing, monitoring and alerting and all that stuff, but not into programming.
Because that comes the same topic, like one with engineer can not know about everything perfect, so it's good maybe that you have a balanced team, so they can learn together.
That's true. It's impossible to hire candidates with who are good in every field.
Okay.
But at the same time, the way I would build a team is like make sure that everybody has their own strengths, and when they all work together as one single team, we have all the strengths onto the table and we can deliver the right product what we want to deliver. So that's what matters the most, like having the right composition of the team. It's not like having heavily inclining on only one skill set in a team will not make it like successful. We need to have a balance in everything.
And what do you do, for example, if you have the opposite, like you have engineers that they are not performing well, and how you do it? Because I know that you can do the career management plan, but if they are not performing well, how you do it?
So basically the weekly one-on-ones is something which is very crucial to any manager, because that will give you the current status and also the mentality of an engineer. As I mentioned, you might be expecting something from them, but they may not be interested in that field, right? But that doesn't mean that they are not delivering to the mark. But we need to figure out a way like how are we gonna make the best use of their strengths, what they have. and things which they are unable to like focus on or not interested in, I make sure that I get them in touch with the right mentors who can help them out in growing that particular skill set.
Okay.
And we have like a plan laid out where we say that, hey, try out this particular project which will help you to jump directly into that particular skill set, and you have this particular mentor who will help you out in going through that whole entire process.
The mentor is someone inside the team, or
someone inside the team or someone outside the team. Someone who the manager can talk to on a regular basis to understand the progress of the candidate. Usually it's like if the candidate is showing interest in making an effort is more than enough. The rest is like, rest assured.
And what do you do, for example, if an employee wants or an engineer wants to leave it? I mean, and you didn't know before, is what do you think that is a good strategy to try to keep that person? Because normally it's very expensive for the company to try to hire a new person, and maybe it's worth it to try to keep it.
Right. I think making the candidate know that the company and the manager, actually the manager, should make sure that the company is striving really hard to grow the candidate. Usually companies invest a lot in terms of training and sending them for certification, sending them for conferences and all, to make sure that the candidate is growing their skill set, and also like that skill set is brought in back to the company to build something unique and more fruitful for the company. So that itself is one indication that this is a very good company, because it is investing back to you. Like companies also have like tuition assistance and all that stuff, which actually helps the candidate to grow. That's one thing. And also given practically speaking, like the companies here especially in Seattle or in Silicon Valley, they are very competitive. They are offering very good salaries and perks and all that stuff. That is highly competitive. But what happens is, like, salary aspect aside, what makes a candidate stick to a company is like how exciting projects they are working on. That is what excites them a lot, right? Am I working on, like, say for example, they wanted to work on machine learning and AI. Is a project what you're working on is going to give them that opportunity? If not, as a manager, I want to make sure that they're getting that opportunity. Either I would propose them to move to some other team where they are working actively on that, or I would say, like, this is the project what we have during our annual planning. What we do is, like, this is a machine learning project, why don't you take up that and design an architecture and start and
so they are more motivated with the project and the time and the work. But then also sometimes the market is super high and it's very competitive, and the salaries start to grow, and people also want to have that raise, that promotion or something.
Exactly.
Do you think that companies nowadays do matching of the, for example, you are receiving, maybe for you, even for the engineer, it's not like he wants to leave, but he wants to have an increase of the salary. And maybe he prefers to stay, but the company has to match it.
It's a very crucial question.
I know.
I know it is very crucial question. Like, yes, it depends completely on like what's the worth and value of the candidate is within the company. Yes, of course. Like, I have seen candidates coming to me saying like, hey, I'm performing much better than anybody else in the team, but what I always tell them is like, are you performing at the mark what the market is asking for? Because you are trying to stack rank yourself within the team,
that is
right?
again a normal thing that you think that you were working so hard, but maybe it's not the company is not needing also that, and the engineer doesn't realize about that, or because, for example, maybe you are doing a lot of work, but you are not focusing, or you are owning only one thing and doing really well. It's only that you are doing many well things, and because you think that you worked so hard, you deserve the raise. No?
That's true.
That is another point.
Yeah, because when they are comparing, when they are saying that their worth is based on the current team situation, it may not be the right way to measure it.
I think in these cases maybe the work of the engineering manager is trying to educate the engineers because they don't know it, maybe.
Exactly.
And you can tell them, hey, it's better that you focus in this piece and you do really well, and later I think that we can give you a raise or a promotion, not doing many things and maybe
right, like if their contribution to the company historically has been really incredible, and we see that they're gonna they can bring in more value to the company is ready to do, any company in that matter is ready to do anything to retain
because there is not a
engineer.
limit of promotions for per company, no?
Exactly.
You can promote 10 people in the team every year if you want.
No, I think there is no cap on that actually.
Okay.
It's like if the whole team is like really performing outstanding and everybody deserves a promotion in
it's
that
not like
year.
I'm going to give only the best one, and the other people did well because maybe the others are not going to feel really well about that situation.
Yes, exactly. And also one more thing is to be considered for raises and promotion is like everybody thinks that it is in the hands of the manager. It's really not, because you are also as an engineer working with other stakeholders like program managers, product managers, and solution architects and technical architects, and we take a 360-degree feedback from all of them. So even if I like the candidate a lot, if the feedback from other people is not that great,
it's more meritocracy for different teams.
Yes, exactly. So that is a success criteria what the manager needs to like look at for, like, are they serving the needs of everybody? Yeah.
So, for example, imagine many entrepreneurs or startups or maybe even engineering managers, they would like probably to know some kind of advice or tips that they can have for their daily work. What do you recommend them, for example, as an engineer manager?
Yes, I know that I can talk so much like very technical stuff, analytical stuff about like the things which are necessary for engineering managers, but with my a very good architecture, very good engineering best practices and blah 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 and all that, but based on my experience, what I feel is like ultimately we are all dealing with humans.
So
even when we are becoming customer obsessed, customers are also humans, and the engineers are also humans. I am a human, everybody is a human, and having a very good emotional intelligence helps a lot over here, rather than being very logical and technical and analytical. I think everybody is very passionate when it comes to like creativity, like a space like software engineering. Everybody is very passionate about things.
Because I think that the culture should be more focused in the growth of the company. For example, if something happens bad, because we are humans, not trying to blame people, trying more to see in a retrospective, like this is what we did bad, how we can improve it and how we can do it better, but not pointing with the finger at someone and saying you did wrong. So
that's true.
I think that is
that is like being a very highly emotional intelligent person is about that, right? There is no company which is perfect, and we are hired to solve problems, so you can understand every company has a problem. Right? And a problem is an opportunity actually, and that's where like a business goes around like solving the problems actually. So basically the kind of culture to build as an engineering manager in a team is to have a very accountable team and which works as a team. Yes, everybody is an individual contributor, but at the end we are all aiming for one goal, is to make the company successful, and whatever comes in that path, any problems or hurdles, we all should actually work together to pass that. So it's not like if somebody is not performing, it's not like they are underperforming or anything. The word underperforming is a way too harsh word to use actually, but basically if somebody is not able to perform because that's not their way of approaching things, and we see that they should be approaching in that way, but making sure that identifying everybody's strength, and as an engineering manager you should make use of everybody's strength.
Okay.
Yeah.
So well, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
How, for example, the audience can contact you if they want to know more about this?
Sure.
Maybe they can find you on LinkedIn or.
Yes, yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. I am available on LinkedIn. I am Sphoorti Patil on LinkedIn. It's SPHOORTI Patil PATIL. So anybody can reach me out anytime.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Anyways, we have a Slack channel, so if you have questions or you want to know more about engineering managers, or even you want to ask some questions or recommendations for the future that you want that we do for the next interviews, please let us know in the YouTube video or join our Slack that you can see also in the comments. So well, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to be here in Seattle and know you.
Yeah, same here, Alejandro. Welcome to Seattle again.
Thank you.